Welcome to 360 Timmy, the podcast with interesting people in 360 degrees. You can listen on all major music streaming services and watch on YouTube by going to youtube.com/360 Timmy.
Hello everyone, welcome again to another 360 Timmy. Today we're in St Katharine's Dock in London, walking towards Tower Bridge, and my special guest today is the comic Sam Serrano.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Sam is a comic, uses, I think it's self-deprecation, isn't it, as part of your comedy?
Yes, very, very much so. That's usually how it's described.
But you've had an amazing journey, starting, I believe, at 15 with your first open mic?
Yes, did my first gig when I was 14 in a non-alcoholic bar, because it was the only place that would let a 14-year-old do a gig. But then I stopped for ages, and then, yeah, solidly been going for about 6 years. Started solidly when I was about 18.
Crikey. And so, also at that age, I believe you started your first comedy club?
Oh, yes, I did. I did. We did one night of it, and then it kind of fell apart. But yeah, for a very long time, I branded myself as the youngest comedy club owner in the country, which, we did one gig, and that very quickly, it was an interesting one, because the charity came to me and went, can you do a gig for the people who go to this like special school? And I was like, yeah, 100%. I just booked a lineup. Then we turned up, we thought it was to raise money for them, but then they were in the audience, and I'd booked comedians who were wrong for the gig.
Oh.
So yeah, they were like, please never come here again.
But that must have been quite a baptism of fire, but a great lesson for you right at the start.
Yes, definitely. I think because I started so young, there was like, I made a lot of mistakes, just because I was young and I didn't quite know what I was doing. And like, when you start comedy, I think you think like, you have like 3 good open mics and then you should be on the Apollo. But that's obviously not how it works. You have to work for ages and ages and ages. I was always like, oh, okay, I've done 2 gigs. I'm ready to start my own comedy night. I can go pro now, can't I? And then 6 years later, I'm very much aware that is not the case anymore.
So how did it start then? I mean, because getting up on stage and having the confidence to tell jokes and consistently get laughs, where'd that come from? Because from a young age, that must have been quite daunting. I was doing acting when I was from a very, very young age. I started going to drama classes when I was about 4 or 5, because my mum could kind of see that I was a bit socially awkward. So she's like, right, these acting classes will boost Sam's confidence, which they did. But then the teacher, the drama teacher, a few years down the line went, you should do something where you don't have to work with other people, which completely went against why my mum wanted me going to drama lessons. So I don't think mum was thrilled about that. But yeah, stand-up was just like the thing where you write it all yourself, you produce it all yourself. It is like everything I do on stage is me. So that really appealed to me. And then, just doing it for a while, and then luckily I'm all right at it. So I'm able to carry it on, definitely. So you have kabuki syndrome, I believe.
Yes, I do.
Now, the first time I heard you talking about this, you even put some comedy on this. You explained the Japanese origins and how it was culturally misappropriated. Do you want to just talk about what that is?
So part of kabuki syndrome is a lot of it is kind of the physical features. So my eyes kind of slant down. And I only found this out recently. The reason it's called kabuki syndrome is because there's kabuki theatre in Japan where they wear masks which kind of accentuate the eyes, and then people were being born with my syndrome, and the person naming it just went, oh, these people look Japanese, so they just gave it that name. My syndrome's cultural appropriation, which is not great.
And I've never heard of that before, so what is it? I mean, is it just a physical thing, or is it?
So it's, with me, it's more the neurodivergent side of it. So like, it often gets very like closely linked to autism. But the physical aspect of it, so like my eyebrows are quite triangular, which is quite similar, and the eyes drooping down. So I sleep with my eyes open, which when you travel on public transport and getting night buses and you're trying to sleep in public, the amount of times I've had very nearly got kicked off a bus because they thought I was staring at them, and I'm like, no, I'm just asleep. Sorry.
Crikey.
So that's what it is. Yeah, it's a lot of it kind of there's a lot of variations of it. With the physical side, I am much more on like the milder side of the spectrum of it. But yeah, with the neurodivergent side, it is, that's where it's kind of most prominent with me. Definitely.
So, and what else do you use in your comedy? What's your kind of key themes? I say the self-deprecation piece. What?
Yes.
Yeah. What's that?
So I think that just came from a place of like when you start comedy, you kind of just talk about what you know, and so I wanted to talk about being queer and having learning difficulties and all that kind of stuff, and I think it was just like the kind of comedy I liked growing up was self-deprecation. So I kind of when you're starting comedy, you watch a lot of the people you love and you go, all right, I want to do that. So I'd watch people like Sam Amstel, who's like one of my favorite comics, and yeah, a lot of his stuff is self-deprecating. So just like that's what I want to do. I want to give that a go. And then there's a lot of people who kind of, as they carry on, kind of go away from that. But yeah, it's just kind of a style that I really enjoy doing, the style I really enjoy watching. And I've always been like, if I'm enjoying doing it, some people must enjoy watching it as well. Definitely.
So last night I went to see your work in progress. So
Yes.
WERQ in progress.
Yes.
So you're testing out new material.
Yes.
I found that fascinating actually watching that. I don't think I have been to a set like that where you're reading from notes.
Yes.
But it didn't look like you were, to be fair, and you made it part of the act. I did like that. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
so talk about that kind of creative process when you.
Yeah, it's I love doing work in progress shows because I feel like it's more exciting for the audience because I think like when you go watch a comic do like a solo show in like the Fringe where they've been previewing it for months, you know it's pretty much going to be good. If you're going to watch someone like, if you go watch Michael McIntyre, he's done it thousands of times, that show. If you go watch like the bigger comics, they know the show, they've done it for ages. With work in progress shows, as you saw last night, there is no guarantee the bits are going to work. It is very clunky. So I think it's a bit more exciting for the audience. I think because that kind of spontaneous aspect of it is there. And with a lot of it, you'll go on with a bullet point, just go, let's try and find something here. So I won't have a joke written, but usually when you do it enough, your brain just kind of tunes into the stand-up and it goes, oh, here's the joke you're looking for. Oh, here's how to make this funnier. So yeah, I really enjoy doing it. And I also get to do a lot more crowd work, which as you saw last night, sometimes I don't have to talk to the audience. They very much enjoy talking to me.
I was going to say that I thought that was maybe your style of act, but I think it maybe was the audience you had last night, but there was a lot of interaction.
Yes, there was. I think just because I talk about being neurodiverse, a lot of people who come and see my shows have either autism or ADHD. So it's something that I kind of have to, I've learned how to play with. Because in a club, if that audience member last night who chipped in quite a bit, if she was in a comedy club, she'd get kicked out.
Yeah.
Which I'm very keen not to have happen at my shows.
Yeah.
So last night I didn't have a support act because I only had the venue for an hour. But when I do have a support act, I have to kind of go, just some of them will chip in, some of them will try and speak to you. Don't treat it like a heckle. Treat it like they're having a chat with you. If you don't want to talk to them, just go, oh, good point, or just ignore them. Which, I think I gave them a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
But towards the end, I did kind of start ignoring them a little bit. But it was also helpful when I forgot a joke, I could quickly go to them, and I know that's 5 minutes where I can go, where was I up to while they're talking about stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. So when you go to the next venue, so you did 2 North down last night in King's Cross. So your next 2 dates are?
Next 2 dates are the Jacaranda in Liverpool and Santiago Bar in Leeds.
Yeah.
And then
tickets still available?
Yes.
Yep.
A lot of tickets.
So what are the dates for that? Do you know the dates?
5th of September for Liverpool, 12th of September for Leeds.
Good stuff. So when you go there, how will the lessons from last night evolve So you recorded everything on a phone?
Yes, I recorded everything on a phone and audio. So with the audio, that's just so I can listen and focus on the words of it. And usually with the video, I watch it. Firstly, that's to put out social media clips. Secondly, if I watch it on mute, so I can watch the performance aspect of it. Because I think, certainly with new stuff, I have a tendency just to stand still. Because I'm thinking so much about what I'm trying to, like, getting the right words out. I'm not thinking about movement, and I'm usually just very static and I stand very still. So I try and watch it back and go, okay, where am I being too still? I try and add some sort of movement to it, definitely. So yeah, the next show, I sat today and listened back to it and made points. I've listened back to it about 3 or 4 times this morning. Just made notes of what I need to change. So if I do that after every single preview, that's how you get the hour kind of much tighter, much better.
And then eventually you'll go to a full show.
Yes.
Next
year. Then, either best case scenario next year. If I have a miracle this year, but yeah, we're looking at next year, which will then be Edinburgh Fringe for the whole month, and then maybe if I've got a big enough audience, we'll do like a tour of it. But then the end goal for this is to film it and put it out as a special, like I did with I did a half-hour one last year, but we're looking at doing this one as my first hour special filmed in front of a crowd and everything, which will be really, really good fun. I'm looking forward to it.
And then what, and tour it as well?
Hopefully, yeah. If I have a big enough audience, but even if I'm doing like the venue last night, I'd happily go back there and do it as a solid hour. Yeah, I think like I'm hoping to get to a point in the next 2 years where I know like a 50 or 60 seater venue, I'm pretty sure I could sell it out. So yeah, that's kind of the hope. That's the end goal. End goal for this one is to be able to film it. But if I'm able to tour it, that's even better, definitely.
And in terms of writing, is it just you, or do you have partners to help you?
No, it's I do all the writing. I've tried in the past to like have like a writing group, and like we all, like a bunch of comedians meet up and we write we write together and we can like chip in with ideas. But I think because my stuff's like so personal, I sometimes struggle doing that. I feel like when I watch another comic, I can tell if someone's written their material or if that's them, because there is a certain aspect of it seems more distant. And I think just with the kind of stuff I do, I feel like it wouldn't have the same. It wouldn't be the same if somebody else wrote it, I don't think.
And you talk about that personal experience. You were saying last night you had several incidents where you travel or you go to different towns and you've been spat at and all that kind of stuff. And explain how you turn that around, I guess, and process it as comedy.
I think the show I'm working on at the moment is based around time I was spat at in the street. That happened in like 2020, and I've never really been able to talk about it on stage yet because it was a really kind of strange thing to happen to me, and it affected me a lot, as I've talked about in the show. But I feel like comedy is like such an accessible way to talk about this kind of things.
Yeah.
If people go, it's not like I think like if people like read an article about it, I don't think anyone who is, I don't think like a homophobe wouldn't go out and read an article about homophobia, but they might come to a comedy club, watch me, which I've had happen before, where people who think like there's only two genders have watched me and gone, okay, I kind of get it a bit more now, because it's a lot more, it's a lot easier for them to kind of access it. So that's kind of where I feel like comedy is perfect to highlight certain aspects of your life in a way that everyone is on board, and most of the time they kind of don't realise that they're learning about this kind of thing. I think that's kind of always been obviously my first goal is to make it really funny. If I'm not able to make something funny, I won't talk about it on stage. I'll find a different, like on a podcast or something, I'll find a different way to do it. But I'm able at the moment to flip things on its head and get some laughs out of it.
And yesterday, I mean, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but yesterday was a tough gig for you because you highlighted that somebody that kind of mentored you at the start. It was the day of their funeral, and you were really close to cancelling. And talk about that a little bit. I that's very touching that at the end. But again, you did in a nice way. You did apply comedy at the end as well, but it was very heartfelt, I thought.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I was very much in two minds about doing that, and even just mentioning it. But yeah, she took her own life a few weeks ago, and last night was the funeral. But I thought, if I'd spoken to a few people and we all agreed that if I'd cancelled the show, she would not have been pleased and she would have fucking come back and haunted me. So yeah, I made a point to not cancel the show and go and do it. I obviously I dedicated the show last night to her because I think. Yeah, I think it was partly because it was playing on my mind while I was on stage. It felt weird not to talk about it. So yeah, at the very end of the show, I quickly did. I quickly mentioned that because she never really got the recognition she deserved. Because she was like me, we started at the same time, and then she stopped for ages. And then the past 2 years, she was coming back and doing more gigs. Very sadly, no one she'll never reach exactly where she should have. But yeah, she was absolutely a phenomenal comedian.
And that's tough, isn't it? Because when you've got to go on stage and make everyone else laugh, I mean, you could have something fairly minor, like an argument with a partner, or something really bad happen. I mean, I've heard of tales of comics going on stage, and their mother's passed away, and they still have to deliver that night because that's that's the gig, isn't it? It's
that's a skill you learn as well. Of something that a comedian said to me recently was, they said that what if this is the last gig you do? What if something happens, if you're in an accident, this is the last gig you do, and this is how you're remembered, this is your legacy, this final gig. So that's what I've kind of been treating myself of, kind of getting in the headspace to be like, right, nothing else matters right now apart from being funny for the 5 minutes to an hour that I'm on stage, which I think has helped a lot to kind of put everything to the back of my mind and just focus solely on the stand-up and the being funny part of it, definitely.
And I saw you. So at the end of the show last night, you spent some time with the audience, but I did notice. Obviously, the persona on stage, and then you kind of I wouldn't say regressed, but became very quiet. I guess were you processing how well it went and all those kind of feelings at the same time? Yeah,
when you're on stage, you definitely get it takes a lot out of you. Because you're constantly trying to find, trying to either think of the next joke or trying to get to the next bit, or there's stuff happening in the crowd which you need to talk to. Which, as we said last night was a very hectic show. It was a lot of fun, and I loved it because it very much kept me on my toes. And I think it was perfect for the new material because it got me a lot looser. So I was able to kind of try things and was able to take a few more risks with some of the jokes. But yeah, often when I go off stage, it's I often need a few minutes to kind of gather myself a little bit. So I quickly went up to the green room, just had a glass of water, and then came downstairs and kind of spoke to people and kind of got. Because I also think that is very important because I'm so grateful when people get tickets to come see me. So I always try and make an effort of being I'm going to be at the back of the room, come and say hi. Or if I'm with. I usually I'll mention the bar that I'm going to afterwards. I'm if you want to come here, but I was with my friend and he was on a date, so we were going somewhere. So I was maybe don't bring the whole crowd with you. Which happened in my Liverpool show when we filmed my special. I announced where we were going, and then I didn't think any of them would come, and then 60 people were trying to get into this bar. Well, me and my mate were we just wanted a quiet drink to celebrate.
You should have got the bar to give you a commission for all the customers. That would have been good, wouldn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, I think we very much kept them afloat last year. And now because I mentioned it briefly last night and cut down a lot on how much I drink. And I went to that bar recently, and they were talking about they're bankrupt now. And I think part of that might be due to the fact I'm not going in there and going, I'll just drink for the rest of the day.
I can sense. I think you did use it last night. I can sense that's going to be part of future sets.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, in terms of being a young comic and starting out, it must be difficult. You've had to fund travel coming down here, staying over in London, which is not cheap, and bedding down with friends and things like that. Look at that. I've never seen that up before. So, sorry, in front of us is Tower Bridge, which is in its upright position. So, that's amazing. Sorry.
I've never seen it like that. Wow.
That's worth the trip down here, isn't it? So, yeah, in terms of that, what else do you do I think you mentioned you write for other comics?
Yes, and I do a little bit of writing for TV shows. I don't know if I'm allowed to say which one.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, I do little bits of that. But it is now getting to the point where a lot of the gigs are now kind of funding themselves.
Yeah.
So if you get the average gig money for me now is between 150 to 200 per gig. So say about 50 of that goes on travel. I'm making pretty much what my mates would make doing a 9 to 5. But yeah, coming down to London, my friend who was at the show last night, he used to live in Liverpool, now lives in London, which is a huge help for me because I do now have accommodation whenever I need it. So yeah, he was. I was kind of trying to persuade him not to go because I was like, oh, I'll miss you. And he was like, yeah, but I'll have a spare room, so you'll have accommodation. I was like, oh, get to London as fast as you can, please.
So you're obviously not gigging every single week. How do you kind of survive in the meantime? Is it the extra writing you do and things like that?
Yeah, I do. The extra writing is kind of where I go to, but I do about 5. I try and do minimum about 4 or 5 gigs a week. So I'm gigging a fair bit, but quite a few of them are up north where I'm from, where I don't have to travel. So I'll usually in the midweek I'll usually take a couple of gigs 50 to 40, 50 quid just to kind of keep on top of that pays for the travel on the weekend where you go and make the kind of the proper money. But yeah, I try and gig quite a bit, and I still do a lot of unpaid stuff where it's new material. Yeah, I write my own stuff. I try and do that. I try and do about 2 hours writing a day, which is a lot, but just kind of trying to get into that headspace. And a lot of that doesn't get used. But yeah, I gig. It pretty much is gigging, writing, and then obviously editing the clips up for social media, which is now a huge part of the job.
Yes,
definitely.
Yeah, we were talking before this, weren't we, about older comics who don't have to do that, but everyone now, all artists, singers, comedians, actors, they're all having to do their own social media at the start for sure. Yeah, and there's so many platforms you have to get it on and the format.
Yeah,
can you get the recording from the gig you were talking earlier about?
Yeah, the amount of times that I've gone on stage and a heckle's happened and I've come off and they've gone, oh, the file's corrupted, you can't have it. And you're like, oh, that could have made my career. So that
viral clip.
Yeah. And you're like, we're never getting it. But you also there's also the issue of, because obviously on TikTok you can't really upload a 10-minute video. No one's gonna watch a full 10-minute thing. So you're right that I've found my writing for a little bit got kind of a lot shorter because I was just trying to write 30-second bits for TikTok and Instagram. So I've tried to I try now to not look for the next viral clip. I just try and have a good gig.
Yeah.
And then I think if I've had a good gig, thank you. If I've had a good gig or there's been a bit of crowd work that's gone somewhere interesting, then I'll definitely put that up as a clip. But I don't go on going, right, when am I getting the next viral clip?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people kind of do. And that is kind of how a lot of comics now work, which is very interesting to see because, there's sometimes where you sit and watch someone do a 10-minute set and you're like, well, that was 20 TikToks. Yeah. Just one after each other. And there wasn't a 5 or 10-minute routine there.
It almost sounds like when people go to concerts and they spend the whole time filming it rather than looking at the concert and taking it in. I mean, it's maybe the obsession with getting that clip is taking a stronghold there, isn't it?
I think so. And I think you can kind of, I know I can certainly tell when someone's just looked for getting the next viral clip. It's happened quite a few times where if there'll be someone on the front row who's maybe like got one leg or something, every comedian will go on and try and reference it, because they'll try and get the comedian roasts audience member with one leg clip. And you're like, it just, after like the 6th or 7th comic has done it, you're like, come on, someone do something original now.
Yeah.
And definitely.
So what does the future hold for Sam then? So after you got your show on, but what do you want to do in the future? What's the goal?
I think I've set myself, if I get to a point where I'm selling out, I'm able to kind of tour once every maybe year, once every 2 years. I think I never really want to go higher than maybe like Leicester Square, which is 400 seater.
Yeah.
Which I think is quite a realistic goal, which I think I should be able to hit. Because I think like when you take comedy past maybe 400 or 500 seater, I think some of it's slightly lost. So I don't think I would work for an hour in an arena, for example. But yeah, I think as long as I'm able to kind of keep building this audience of people who like my stuff and come and pay to watch me, I think as long as I keep doing that, I'll get somewhere. Definitely, is kind of the hope. But yeah, I try not to set goals. I try and just go, where can I next get the audience from?
Yeah.
As long as I'm building that audience, I'm happy.
That's
no matter
brilliant.
how small they are.
Well, I'd like to catch up in the future and see where you've got to, for sure.
Perfect. I'd love to.
Thank
Definitely.
you, Sam. Thank you very much. I had a great chat, and
Thank you for
hope
having
you've
me.
enjoyed it.
I really have. Thank you.
Take care.
Remember, you can watch the video version of this podcast on youtube.com/@360timmy. Episodes are available in regular or 360 view. More links on 360timmy.com.